It's a feature, not a bug, modifying GitHub release assets without telling anyone.
So, Andy, I understand that there's a question or an issue with GitHub.
We'll learn that it's more of a feature and less of a bug. It's one of those. But a security researcher or a researching company called Nightwatch Cybersecurity, they posted on their blog that they discovered that they can basically edit release assets on GitHub without anybody knowing. And there's some details to that. So GitHub, as you know, is the it's an online repository. A lot of companies use it for version control, releases, distributions, things like that. It's sort of the de facto repo, online repo. And in that, each repo has a release section. And so if you own a repository and you own the code, you can sort of package your source code into a release for distribution. It's sort of like a snapshot of your code at that time. And a lot of repos will have compiled code ready for under their releases tab so that you can download it and install it or execute it. You don't have to go in and compile it yourself. So what they found was any collaborator on that project can actually go in after the release has already been published and change the assets. And what's kind of weird about that is the UI doesn't reflect that a modification has taken place. And the owner of the repo actually doesn't get notified that a collaborator has just modified the assets, basically. So releases we talked about like the source code the snapshots. In addition to those snapshots, though, you can kind of allow assets. You can have like different files and whatnot. Those are the ones that can actually be modified and updated after the releases occur. So it's a little concerning because there's not very much visibility when those modifications occur. And of course, the attack scenario here is if an attacker really wants to kind of poison the supply chain, so to speak, what they would do is compromise one of the collaborators in order to go in and kind of modify the assets on the release. So the security research company, they reached out to GitHub. GitHub basically said, hey, this is an intended feature. And mentioned something about how they're going to be making improvements in that space, but there was nothing specific that was stated. It was just sort of left ambiguous. And it's also worth noting that this was only tested on like the regular, public GitHub. It wasn't tested on GitHub Enterprise. So it's just kind of stuck to there for now.
Like that was my question is whether this was on the paid, the paid versions of the product as well. And we don't know. It sounds like it's just not tested there. But
correct.
The whole software bill of materials, it's certainly a hot topic now. And so anything that can modify software before it, in that supply chain is always a concern, especially now.
Yeah, there is a way to go in and identify if assets on a release have been modified, but it's through GitHub's API. When you hit their API, you get a lot more data, and one of the fields is like an updated at field. So you can compare that with the created at time and make your determination whether or not something has occurred there. But it's not obvious to the user going to download it, and I think more importantly, it's not obvious to the owner of the project that modification has taken place. Because malware has been on GitHub before. Malware authors have used GitHub to house CNC information, actual malware, EXEs, kind of the gamut. And GitHub has worked really hard to make sure that all of that stuff gets taken down, and GitHub is a relatively safe place. But this is tough because, like I said, it's a feature. It's intended, collaborators, I guess in theory, should be allowed to edit these things, but maybe some more awareness around it would be a good idea.
I feel like in the last 3 months, we've seen more of the supply side attacks than we have been predicting. For a while, we've been predicting them and how big they're going to be. And we've seen things happening, right? Like OpenSSL vulnerability, other vulnerabilities that are happening. But I feel like in the last, probably 6 months, it's just like, I don't know, just so much more going on about supply chain compromises, and the bad guys are really focused in, whether it be GitHub or another product, to really hack into the processes that we're using, or that development teams are using, really, that, businesses out there are using. And they're really hacking more of the process, I feel like, a lot of times, or this trust that we have, like, oh, GitHub or whatever, it does any company, like, oh, I really trust that they have everything kind of working the way you would intend. And by violating this trust is where they're able to find these big kind of vulnerabilities that we all have to pay attention to. I think in the past, everyone could have said, like, who would do that? But I think now we can see, at least in the last 6 months, somebody would do that. Somebody would try, compromising your trust in. I actually remember we talked about it like a few months ago, like a toolbar or an add-on to your, Chrome extension, or something on GitHub, or some app that you don't expect. They bought it out. The developer wasn't making any money on it, but a bunch of people still had it installed. So they roll in a new update. It really seems like the bad guys have figured this out, and unfortunately, we're all now affected by it.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about trust, because one of the aspects of this whole feature, I'll call it, is when you actually commit that release snapshot, you can actually sign that commit, and you get a little verified tag on it. So it's a nice green logo, and it makes it feel good, because it's kind of like the little green lock in your browser. Hey, this is a HTTPS site. I should be good to go. I mean, unfortunately, that's not true anymore. But at one point it was. I remember at one point that was sort of the advice that everyone heard, is just make sure you see that lock. So, you go to GitHub, you see that verified tag, I think is what it is. It'd be great. Unfortunately, that only applies to the snapshot itself, and any other assets, even if they've been modified, it doesn't really apply to that. So if that modification takes place, that verified moniker remains there. So you still have that nice warm fuzzy feeling because it's green and it's good. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, Stan, that trust maybe shouldn't be there. It should be a little less trustworthy, these things.
Yeah, I think that the issue even gets not worse, but whatever, is amplified when you think about, like, the technology is getting maybe so complex, and then, like, everyone has to be able to use the technology, maybe even people who didn't build it or don't really understand what that means. And we've all done a good job training people, like, oh, yeah, look for this. The green, that's good. The red or orange, that's bad. And really, like, I think inherently people, like, don't really fully, I think we all can, like, not fully understand the implications of what a green check mark really means on a website. What does it mean that you have that SSL check mark? If you don't know what it means, then you might think it means the site is secure, whereas all it really means is the domain matches the certificate in the SSL certificate, and it was signed by somebody you don't even know. Yeah, it's in your browser, the certificate chain. You don't even know who it is. And there's lots of things like that I think I'm recently been stumbling on, is just where, we trust something inherently, and that trust gets violated, and it causes issues like this. I mean, even if you think about, like, the buffer overflow attack, I know that's, like, taking us back into the maybe 80s or 90s with buffer overflows, but there's a trust violated to the developer. Like, the developer might not really understand about buffers and how they're allocated, or the fact that, you could get, you could just, by overriding the stack just a little bit, you can actually change the control flow of the program. So I think in all of these hacks, I think trust in how something works, or understanding how something actually technically works. And it doesn't matter your, like, complexity level. If you're a dev, or if you're just a user, or if whoever you are, there might be something happening underneath you don't fully understand. And we're seeing adversaries really take advantage of that, unfortunately.